I've angered some moms on the internet, so let's talk about it. I made a series of short form videos. It's available here on YouTube Shorts or also over on TikTok, talking about how screens are bad for children. And I don't think children should have screens. Really simple. I wanted to sit here because I wanted to be able to watch the weather because it's just like really intense. And I find it enjoyable as long as, you know, people are safe. So I made a video. The first video was me talking about how children shouldn't have access to screens. I can't believe this is still a debate we're having because there's all of these studies and research and information out there telling us that screens are bad for kids. And so we need to get the screens out of our kids' face. Take them away. Take away the devices. Take away the iPads, the phones, all of that stuff. They don't need them. And I had a lot of moms and some dads, but mostly moms, come on the internet and come on into my comments and say things like, well, you shouldn't be judging them and you don't know what you're talking about. I had one person who just told me to shut the f*** up. Plenty of people who are saying, well, it's none of your business. I understand that they're your kids. I'm just merely stating facts that are now well known. Screens are bad for kids. I had one person who said, well, if they're safe and healthy, then it's not your business. We know for a fact that screens are not safe and healthy for kids. So therefore, that would make it my business. And I'm not going to not talk about parenting truths that I believe in. This is true. I believe in this. This is something I stand by. And if you're super defensive about it, maybe you should reflect on that. Maybe you should be taking the screens out of your kids' space. And I'm not a screen purist. I'm not saying that kids can never have access to screens. My daughter loves to watch Taylor Swift music videos, and I'm fine with that. But at the end of the day, it's not me handing her an iPad. She's watching it on the TV for a very limited amount of time. There is strict controls around it, and her access is not unlimited and unfettered. She's only 2.5. She doesn't need an iPad. And odds are your kids don't need iPads either. And then I had moms come into my comments talking about their children with disabilities or special needs and how I shouldn't judge them because they need those items. And that's understandable. If your child actually needs assistive devices, then okay. That's a different ballgame altogether. I'm talking about neurotypical children whose parents just don't really want to put in the effort. And I say that with my full chest. Giving your kids iPads instead of letting them be kids and make noise and drive you up a wall and like misbehave occasionally is just numbing them. These kids are not developing the way that they should be. They're being numbed because you don't want to have to deal with it. And that is wrong. So let's get into some facts, because these aren't my opinions. These are just facts. 2019 study in GAMA Pediatrics. I don't know if it's pronounced JAMA or I'm sorry, JAMA Pediatrics. Found that higher screen time at the age of 2. Whoa. That was intense. Found that higher screen time at the age of 2 was associated with lower developmental outcomes by age 3 and 5. So by giving your kid high levels of access to screen time, you are going to already see the impact to their well-being by 3 and 5 years old. They're going to miss essential milestones. Kids who have more screen time have difficulty managing their emotions at all, generally more tantrums, and an attention issue. And you can even see this in adults. How many times have you watched a video for only 2 seconds and scrolled right past it because it couldn't hold your attention? A million, right? It's not just true for children. You can see it impacting adults as well. Screens are also not good for adults. But whenever you bring it up to adults saying, hey, you know, It might be healthy and good for your mental health if you put your phone down every once in a while. Everyone talks about adults that win and they cheer them. They say, yeah, you're totally right. You should go outside and get some fresh air. But as soon as they say that about kids, it's, well, you shouldn't judge them. They're doing their best. No, they are not doing their best. Their best would be allowing their children to be bored, allowing their children to have emotions and work through those emotions with them, not, once again, giving them a device, a screen to parent for you. The Canadian, this is a mouthful, so I'm going to just straight up read this and not even pretend like I can say this off the top of my head. The Canadian Healthy Infant Longitudinal Development Study, CHILD for short, found that 3-year-olds with more than 2 hours of screen time daily were 5 times more likely to have behavioral issues. I mean, you want to know why your kid is such a handful? Maybe it's because you're giving them a screen all the time. Screen use is disruptive for bedtime. Again, another thing that is true for adults, but for some reason when we say it about children, people lose their minds. Screens are not good. Blue light is not good for sleep. It is disruptive to sleep. This one's pretty obvious. This, again, another thing that's true for adults, but obviously the more time you're spending on the screen, the less physical activity you're getting. Unless it's like, I don't know, Just Dance. When I was a kid, like, Just Dance had come out and, you know, it was a lot of screen time, but also you were moving a lot. That's one of the reasons why I love and I'm okay with my daughter watching Taylor Swift music videos, because it's on the big TV. We don't let her just sit and watch. She gets up and she dances and she sings along, and she mostly pretends to be Taylor Swift, and it's really cute. But she's also moving. She's getting physical activity. It's a great way, especially for us before Mass, to burn some of her energy before we have to go make her sit for an hour in Mass. Here's a quick 3 other ones that are also true for adults. Can develop addictive behavior and dopamine dependency. You all know this, you all know how it feels. Like, these apps have an addictive quality to them. That's why they're so successful. It's also bad for vision and eye health, and it undermines family connection. And I made a TikTok video. People were so mad. I made a video about this. Kids should not have iPads at restaurants or at dinner time in general, period. But I really don't think kids should have iPads or phones at restaurants. Your kid, other activities are fine. I like to bring coloring books. We like to bring normal books. But your kids are not going to learn how to interact in social public settings unless you force them to do that. And by giving them an iPad, you're teaching them that they don't need to regulate their emotions. They don't need to be aware of their surroundings. They don't need to be considerate of other people. And I know that a lot of parents do this because they think that they are being considerate of other parents, but it's just prolonging an issue. It's just delaying it and making it last longer than it needs to. If you take your kids out to a restaurant with you and you interact with them, here's the key. Parents also should not be on their phones at restaurants and at dinner time. Get off of your devices. If you can't understand why your kids won't behave without having a device, have you looked at what your habits are? Are you constantly on a device in front of them? That might be a problem. If you say that you can't have them come out to a restaurant without an iPad or giving them your phone because they're just going to complain because they don't want to be there, are you constantly on your phone at the restaurant too? Are you interacting? You have to take responsibility for your own actions and behaviors too. Some people say that they give their child screens for learning purposes, but studies have shown that under the age of 5, there's not much they can really get from screens. They're going to always get more from interpersonal interaction. And so, and I fell for this trap too. For a minute there, we had her watching Miss Rachel. And I think it taught me how to teach her, but all it did for my daughter was massively increase her tantrums. Like, she would lose her mind if we didn't put Miss Rachel on. And we only did it for like a week. And then we cut that off as soon as we could because we were like, this is problematic. She is very attached to this show. It was helpful in the sense that we watched it with her, and so I was able to pick up some of the things that Miss Rachel did to teach like the ABCs, for example, and we would do that with her instead. We would just, like, she didn't get to watch Miss Rachel anymore. We would reference Miss Rachel for ourselves in order to teach her better. But kids watching that kind of stuff under the age of 5 is proven to not do as much as you think it does. And now let's talk about teenagers. Teenagers who have unlimited access to screens are going to have more anxiety and depression issues than anyone else. A 2018 study published in Preventative Medicine found teens who spend more than 3 hours a day on screens are at a higher mental health issue. And you look around today and you see how bad the mental health crisis is, and obviously there are multiple things that play into that, but screens, the increase in screen time for young adults and kids is a massive contributor to that. So let's stop pretending like screens are okay. I had someone comment like, oh, well, you recorded this on your screen. You're on your screen right now. I'm sorry, am I 2? Do I look 2 to you? Do I look 5? No, there's a very big difference between my brain and that of a small child's. My brain is done developing. The whole prefrontal thing, all there. Kids don't have that. They don't have the ability to regulate their intake, and they need their parents to do that for them. That is your job. It's hard, it sucks. It is so much easier to hand your kid a screen and like let them be quieted down and not bother you. I get it. I understand how much easier that is. But because it's easy doesn't mean it's right. Get the screens out of their faces. Oh my gosh, I ended my video without saying some of the most important stuff. Thank you so much for watching. I post every day on TikTok and YouTube Shorts. I'm on X, Facebook, Substack, Instagram, and please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share, and hit the notification bell so that you know every time I post.